the secretary to the Order of the Laurel, Maestra Maria Theresa Ipeñarrieta, and featuring a live performance by Barone Antonio Giordano from the Kingdom of the West. And now, 3 laurels, no waiting. It's your announcer, Master Bjorn of the Northern Sea. And here's your host, Master Laertes McBride.
Good evening. How are you? Welcome to the show. So I hope everyone here in Caid had the opportunity to either attend the final court for Now Their Graces, Alexander and Tahira, or had the opportunity to watch it. It was posted on the Kingdom Facebook group page and on the YouTube channel. Just a quick congratulations to their graces and a thank you from a personal thank you, I guess you would put it, for sticking around for as long as they did. The never-ending reign, as they like to call it. Their service, dedication, and attitude really helped us get through these challenging times. And of course, a big congratulations to their Majesties Panza and Catherine too. Let's see, we had a couple of vigilants for the Order of the Pelican announced, to Morgana and Nico. Nico. And all the officer changeovers, thank you and congratulations. So that's a bit of housekeeping. And let's go ahead and bring in my friend, Mr. Bjorn. He'll be here in just one moment. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
That was a great court. I mean, that was probably the shortest coronation I've ever been to.
It was an excellent ascension. We have to call it what it is. I think that even though, in my opinion, they wanted to try and make it as much like a coronation as possible, which is why it started late. And I also think that that they wanted to make sure that as many people got a chance to see the unique and wonderful things that were going on. And I think they did an excellent job. Hats off to their graces. New hats on for their graces. And I'm really excited to lend my assistance however I can to the Majesties of Panza and Catherine, and whatever we can do in the coming months ahead to try and restore normalcy as the vaccine rolls out and everything else happens.
Exactly. So I'm sure there's, we have a new Kingdom Seneschal, so plenty of change is afoot. So anyway, so what do you have for us for the arts and sciences this week?
Well, this is going to be a little bit of a self-serving thing this evening. And the reason for that is as follows. So, hi guys, I'm Bjorn of the Northern Sea. And on occasion, I actually do teach classes. I know that sounds bizarre, but for some strange reason, from time to time, the good people of Caid and elsewhere occasionally ask me to teach classes on the Bardic arts. In particular, the things that I really enjoy doing are singing, poetry, and storytelling. And while we try not to do all 3 of those things in one go, usually singing is sort of its own separate thing. And then poetry and storytelling, usually the sonorous speechifying, if you will, kind of lends itself well enough to a single class. In that vein, the Barone of Dreiburgen has put together for every 4th Thursday of the month, they normally have a Bardic circle. And under normal circumstances, they just have the pass or play concept over Zoom, where people are able to enjoy the Bardic arts, get a chance to work on things, workshop through things. But they had asked me to teach, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to move my schedule to theirs for their normal teaching time. So instead, they decided that this Bardic Circle for this upcoming month, for the month of January, would instead be a workshop class. So to that end, we're going to talk a little bit about the open source websites that I recommended for the people that will be attending, and then we're going to talk about the class itself. First things first, there is a fantastic website online. It's an amazing resource, and it is called opensourceshakespeare.org. And it is exactly what it says. It talks about the plays, it talks about the poems, it talks about a bunch of other things. The not just the sonnets in order, various other bits of correspondence, and it is exactly what it states. It's an open source where people who maybe don't have the Globe Illustrated Shakespeare in their back pocket, and if you do, get yourself checked because that's a really big book, but they have the ability to go to this website and look up something. And perhaps they just want to look for a specific phrase. You can put that in quotes in the search, and maybe you just want to look for it. You don't think it's in a play, you think it might be in a poem. You can look in all the works, or you can look in a specific play, or you can look in a specific set of poems. It's a really neat um, way to look for various things within Shakespeare's folio. And that was one of the things that I asked for the students to utilize. In particular, I'm having the people that present as male to look at a part of Edmund, uh, and that is going to be coming from one of the plays. And then I'm also having folks look at the part of Phoebe if you are someone that presents as female or would like to do a female role. And so the open source Shakespeare will be where you would go to get that if you don't automatically already have the the Shakespeare or a dog-eared copy or what have you. The other thing that I wanted folks to look at was this is poetryfoundation.org is a website that talks about poems, poets, prose, various collections, and it is where I am having people go to look up the prologue for the Canterbury Tales by Geoffrey Chaucer. And so between the plays with a poetic bent, because of course Shakespeare, and then the long form poem that is the prologue for Canterbury Tales. I'm going to have the students take a look at those and workshop those so we can all work together on how best to expand repertoire and present these pieces. Now, the Poetry Foundation's website is fantastic in that they have a lot of things are post period, of course, but they also have these really great sections that are for period documentation. The very first collection they have is called An Introduction to the English Renaissance. It is a fantastic article that also goes to various different seminal works within the Renaissance and various very important poets and writers. But it doesn't just talk about the Renaissance, it also talks about influencers of the Renaissance. For example, it talks about things in Plato's Republic, which was written 375 BCE. And yet, when it was found and when it was consumed by the people of the Renaissance, they drew upon it and they tried to recreate a lot of the things within it, which inevitably led to what became the Baroque era, at least from a musical perspective. So those two things combined will be what the students will use for the Dreiburgen's Bardic Circle on the 28th of January. It'll be 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific time, and I will be teaching a class on how to workshop those pieces, how best to use that material in a way to best evoke, inspire, or propel a certain ideal. And no two people necessarily will perform the piece the same. As a matter of fact, unless you are doing something verbatim from a recording or from a video that you've seen, your interpretation will be your own. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the students who will be coming to the workshop will have to do. So I do want to take this moment to say thank you very much for taking your time and listening to this. I hope those of you that are interested will be able to come to the class at the end of the month. And if time is permitting afterwards, we will have a pass and play Bardic Circle. So people will get a chance to come and try out some of the things that they've learned, some of the new concepts, and hopefully we'll have a great time.
Awesome. Sounds fascinating. I mean, a good workshop, hone your skills. We were mentioning when I first heard you, I thought you said open source Shakespeare, which would be a completely different website, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he wrote anything about leprosy per se.
But, anyway. So, who's our first guest this evening?
We have as our first guest the Secretary of the Order of the Laurel for the Kingdom of Caid, Miss Maestra Maria Theresa, and she is a fascinating person. We're very excited to have her with us this evening, so we get a chance to learn about those elusive wearers of the bay leaf.
Of which you frequently hang out with too.
True enough.
All right, well, let's bring her in. And she'll be here in just right about now. Hello.
Good evening, Laertes. Good evening, Bjorn.
He can only talk now. He's one of those ethereal voices at the moment.
Well, he's better as a voice anyway, right? He is a Bardic Laurel.
That's true. That's why he's our announcer. Plus, he will announce the names correctly as opposed to me.
I can't even say my name correctly most of the time, so.
So, thank you for joining us. I thought it would be a great opportunity with what's going on to get a little insight on how the Order of the Laurel works, as in, you discuss, we're not going to get into particulars, but how the meetings are structured and what the office of the Secretary to the Order does, and how y'all communicate to the Crown, that kind of stuff. So I guess first off, how long have you been a Laurel?
Oh, geez, since 1997, which is AS, I don't know. Their Majesties Joseph and Carolyn, at their stepping down court, elevated me to the Order of the Laurel for historical research and costuming. So I guess I'm going on 24 years. My Laurel is definitely old enough to drink, vote, and almost serve political office.
Well, that's nice. I could have a career on its own.
Yes.
And is this isn't your first term as the Secretary for the Order, is that correct?
It is not. I served as Secretary of the Order almost 16 years ago. I did a 2-year stint. Usually our secretaries serve for 2 years. I'm in year 4, going on year 5 as a secretary this time. However, I will be stepping down. I was supposed to be stepping down this month, but with the pandemic, it'll probably be July now, and Mistress Colette will be taking over for me very soon, for which I am eternally grateful. Not that I don't love my cousins, and I do love serving the kingdom and advising the crown, but all good things must come to an end.
Right. So essentially, I think your job description is a cat wrangler, but
yes.
If you have a little bit more detail on really what's kind of involved in the position, that'd be great.
All the peerage orders involve quite a bit of cat wrangling. I think that the Laurels involve quite a bit more because artists are particularly cat-like in their independence. But so basically what I do is I serve as a liaison between the Order of the Laurel and the Crown of Caid. And a lot of it is paperwork, administrative work, making sure people pay their dues, that I send out minutes from our meetings, that I organize and run our meetings. We have 2 meetings a year, one for each reign, that are organized by the Order. And then, of course, the Crown is welcome, as is their right, to call a meeting of the Order as they see fit. Though our crowns in Caid, unlike other kingdoms, tend to be happy with the Order running their business, and then they come to our meetings and hear our advice. And so our meetings happen, as I said, twice a year, usually in January and July. Depending on the kingdom calendar, those dates can slip a little bit, but it's always once per reign for each crown. And what triggers a meeting is we receive letters of recommendation from the populace, from the crown, and from other members of the Order. And we collect those letters up and save them up in the 6 months prior to a meeting. And then a month before the meeting, we send those letters out for the Order to consider who the list of candidates are that we've received letters for. We discuss every single person we receive a letter for. whether we've discussed them before, whether they've been in the SCA for 2 weeks or 20 years. We talk about anyone that is recommended to us because we feel that we can't see everything. And so it's nice to hear from the populace and everyone at large. When we meet to discuss, we discuss the person's art and in quite detail. And I think people would be surprised. I know I was at my very first Laurel meeting, the level of detail and seriousness that the order takes for every art form. And we really rely on each other because unlike some of the other orders, we don't always have a common frame of reference. My art form, for example, is historical research and costuming. So if a cook or a pottery candidate comes up, I don't know as much about those art forms. So I rely on my cousins who do, as well as my own research beforehand. That's why it's important to know who the candidates are for each meeting ahead of time. But I really rely on my cousins in the order who know more about that to lend their expertise. And so that's what I think makes us strong in a lot of ways, because we have such broad interests and broad knowledge base. And so we all really come together and help each other evaluate the art in the kingdom. And it's not a judgy thing. I know it sounds judgy. It sounds like a sorority. And I know I think I even had that impression before I became a Laurel, and it's not like that. It's more of a community of like-minded artisans who really strive for a high level of authenticity, not just authenticity, but authenticity and knowledge and betterment of the arts in the kingdom. So we discuss that. We determine if people have met that bar or if they need some work. If they need some work or some help, then we try and see how we can help them move forward. Or if maybe they just need 6 months or a year or whatever. And so but we do consider every single person. And then we put it to a vote, and it's an anonymous vote among the order who is present. For those who are not present, we send out minutes, and they have 2 weeks after the minutes are received to send in an absentee vote. And if we have a majority of 75% of the yes/no votes and 65% of the yes/no abstain votes, then we forward a recommendation to their majesties for elevation. And I think in all my time as a Laurel, I have not seen a crown reject one of our recommendations for elevation. And so then it's my job to communicate with the crown and arrange the informing and the elevation.
Wow. So, I have a couple questions to follow up on it.
That was a lot, sorry.
No, that was great because it gave me a chance to take some notes. So you say letters. Let's say you get letters in, right? And then y'all talk online about which ones will become the candidates you're going to talk about, or when you're in the meeting, you take each letter and you talk about each person.
Right. So we receive the letters. They could come written in the mail, but they always come via email. And I, as a secretary, collect them, and I send out an agenda to the order 1 month prior to the meeting, the scheduled meeting, with the list of candidates. So everyone we receive a letter for, we discuss in the meeting.
Okay. So, and then the other thing you're talking about is, okay, so even though this is a society peerage, right,
Mm-hmm.
and there are guidelines and requirements within corpora about what it requires to be and the duties and responsibilities of being a Laurel.
Correct.
Each kingdom really has this unique flavor of how it interacts not only within the order and how it interacts with the crown. Is that a pretty good summary?
Yes, correct.
So,
Caid is interesting among a lot of kingdoms out there. It is always the crown. It is the crown's right to elevate, even though it is a society-wide order. It is the crown's right to elevate. But Caid has a tradition that people are not elevated, at least to the Order of the Laurel, without the consent of the order. So I think everyone can be assured that if, at least in this kingdom, that if they're offered elevation to the Order of the Laurel, they've been vetted and approved by the order. It's such a strong tradition here that I've never seen it, well, in 24 years, I haven't seen it be broken. I know other kingdoms, the crown has been known to elevate against the wishes of the order or without consulting the order, but that really doesn't happen here. So that's one piece of kingdom anthropology that one of the things I really appreciate about the Caidan order is it's really a collaboration between the crown, because the crown trusts us. And every crown I've worked with has trusted us to have the to have the artisans of the kingdom in mind.
Yeah, I can say from other orders I'm in that we've had the same experience. So I'm very fortunate. So now being the Laurels, I imagine you have some amazing potlucks.
Yes.
So
Yes.
so is that basically the deal? Everyone has to bring a dish to each one?
Yeah,
And is
so
it anything special a new person has to bring to their first meeting?
Yeah, so the best part is that our meetings usually start at noon, and we have a potluck starting at 11, which is like a social hour. And it's amazing because we have cooking laurels. And Mistress Colette, especially, who is the bacon laurel, is always known to bring something amazing. But we have Claudia and Jamal and Colette and Giuseppe, and so we always have fantastic food. And then the kicker is also that anyone who's new has to bring champagne. It is required that they bring champagne to their first meeting. And it's kind of nice when, we've had a couple Laurels who weren't able to make their first meeting. And so then we get to what's their second meeting, or is their first one present? And we have a couple new Laurels, and it's a little bit of a party. So, but we try and keep the drinking to a minimum until we're done, because we need to be sober-ish.
I was going to say ish.
We do, there've been brewing Laurels. So, Master Paul, for example, did bring some homebrew with him. His homebrewed wine was not unwelcome.
So I know you talked about looking at their area of expertise, right?
Yes.
And what they're potentially being recognized for. How big of a portion do the PLQ conversations take in general meeting? Is that, I know in some they talk about the area that they're looking at,
Right.
whether it's service or whatever, and then there is a conversation about PLQs too. Does that happen in the meetings too?
Yes, it does. So, and to define for those who don't know, PLQ is a peer-like quality. So to be a peer in the kingdom, you not only have to excel at whatever your peerage is for, whether it's the arts or service or fighting, you also have to be peer-like in your demeanor and comportment. And so the Laurels do consider that. So what we do is we have a two-part vetting process, and the first part is the art bar. And we discuss whether you've met the candidate has met the art bar. And if it's determined that they've met the art bar, that their art is of Laurel quality, then we move on to the second part of the conversation, which is peer-like qualities, to make sure that they meet not only the corpora requirements, because corpora has specific requirements about being able to dance and play chess and be hospitable and have a registered name in arms, but also that you are welcoming to newcomers and open, and that you are an example of the best parts of the peerage. And so we do consider that as well. And a candidate is required to pass both bars before we move forward to a vote.
I've seen Laurels pass a lot of bars.
Oh yeah, lots of bars.
So I'm curious, and you don't answer or not. So is it often a candidate comes up for the very first time and they pass, or is it more like a gauntlet and it takes several meetings? And if you're like, can't talk about that. I was just curious because I've seen it two different ways in the ones I've been in. So I was just curious.
It can be both, because some people, they are recommended and we're like, I could have had a V8. Why haven't we talked about this person before? Duh, they should have been a Laurel, why? Yes, yes, And other people, they come to us and after several discussions, because it's a journey, some people have a journey to reach their goal. And then some people are just recommended too early in their journey. And it's not that they won't get there or that they aren't fabulous artisans, but maybe they're just not quite there yet. And those people, we have something called the watch list. And I know that sounds scary and like we're big brothers watching you, but it's just a list of artisans that we think will be with us in the next few years and that we want to keep our eye on, you know, and that list is constantly changing, and it's not a bad thing to be on, and it's not a bad thing to leave. If people become inactive in the SCA, they have lives, and it's just a way for us to, because the kingdom is big, not as big as some kingdoms, but population-wise, we're quite a large kingdom, and there's a lot of wonderful people and wonderful artisans in this kingdom. And so sometimes you can forget a name, and it's like, oh my God, yeah, the hat lady, oh my gosh, you know, and so that list helps us kind of keep track of that.
Now, how many active laurels do we have in the kingdom? Well, okay, a year ago, about how many active laurels do we have in the kingdom?
I'd say well, it depends on how you view active. We have about 30 plus who come to meetings and actively vote, 30 to 40. We also have probably about another 10 to 20 who choose not to vote because they don't feel they're active enough, but I see at events often enough. So I'd probably say we have about 50 to 60 laurels out there. And by the way, Fenella says some of us never pass the bar, and cheers to you, Fenella, in the comments. So probably about 50 to 60 laurels who I would consider active, even if they don't consider themselves active.
That's pretty big group.
Yeah.
So,
and some come back who we haven't seen in a while. Mistress E. Grange just moved back. She was Duke John's laurel. He was apprenticed to her, and she's back. Been back last year. We're happy to have her back. Have another metalworking laurel. So people come and go.
I have one last question, and it's Bjorn's turn. So,
okay.
I don't know if people understand. So when you move in from another kingdom and you have a society level peerage, are you just automatically welcome in, and you're one of the troop and you move forward? Is there any position or anything, or how does that work?
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to pass the bar test in that you have to pass a bar or not. No, once you're a laurel, and it doesn't matter where you live in the SCA, that is a society peerage. And so you are, at least in Caid, and I am assuming from my experience, just talking to others in other kingdoms, this is true elsewhere, you are welcome in your new kingdom should you move there, to participate or not as much as you'd like, but that peerage holds rank wherever you move.
Awesome. And so at this point, you're going to get much better questions from Bjorn, so I'm going to step away for a moment, and here he comes.
Uh-oh, here's trouble.
I have to admit, I always enjoy the potlucks very much.
Right?
I enjoy.
Well, you're another one who brings excellent food to the potluck.
I like that, although that was actually leading into my question. So in Caid, unlike several other kingdoms, we have a principal art form, and then we have a secondary. Would you mind telling people in Caid and elsewhere a little bit about what something I think that might be unique to Caid in that regard?
It's not unique to Caid, but we're definitely probably, I would think it's about 50-50, maybe 40-60 among the kingdoms about how this is done. Caid, we consider our artisans for a primary art form, which is what they excel at, a single thing that they reach a master level at in what they do. And then their secondary is that we require that our artisans be at least competent, preferably journeyman, but that's not required, at least competent in a secondary art form to show that they're not a one-trick pony, that they can only do one thing, because we would like our artisans to be well-rounded. Other kingdoms other kingdoms, and this is a completely valid way to judge artisans as well, look at, because some artisans can't stick to one thing. Some artisans, like Mr. Seo and Master Giuseppe, they just do everything and do everything, many things very, very well. And so other kingdoms don't stick to that paradigm of a single art form as a primary, and instead they just look at, is this person an excellent artist at whatever arts they do? And they're all laurel, and they don't have to identify at time of elevation, a specific art form. So, but Caid has always stuck to that, what we like to call major and minor, or primary and secondary viewpoint on awarding laurels.
Because as you say, my secondary being culinary art, I always enjoy bringing things to the potluck, and also cooking feasts and the like in the SCA. I just think it's a really nice way to food equals love where I come from, and it's just another way to present nice things for folks to ingest, whether via ear or through the stomach. The other thing I wanted to ask you was, so we have people, cousins across the known world that I actually know the one Laurel right now is the only one who got their laurel for making period kites. And we also have folks that are, they specialized in making medieval medical instruments. Very finite, but really fascinating things. I haven't been a laurel very long, even though I've been in this kingdom for a long time, but so I don't know what is the most unique art form that someone has been elevated for in Caid that you think, or do you remember?
I would say siege weapons. We actually awarded a siege weapons laurel to Master Quinn Phelan for making trebuchets and catapults, and full size, not models.
That's right. That's right. And they were awesome.
Yeah.
Trebuchets are cool.
Yeah, they are. Well, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. And I think that is one of the, as you were just saying, relying on our cousins that have such diverse and deep knowledge, whether it is kites or siege weapons or everything in between. I think that's one of my favorite things about being part of the SCA is the wealth of recreations that we bring.
Absolutely.
And I thank you very much for being such a long time servant of the society, being the secretary, since it is not just wrangling cats, but also keeping documentation of said cat wrangling for any number of reigns. And I know that during the time of the plague, it was exceptionally challenging, but being there and watching how well you were able to work with both their former majesties and their current majesties when they were the heirs. You did such great work in keeping everybody in the loop, and I was very thankful that you were the secretary for our order.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
And so now we get to ask our question. Do we get to do something else, Laertes? Do we get to do the thing yet? Do we get to?
We do. I thought he was done, so I took him off the screen. All right. So now's the fun part with the trivia. Okay, there's no cheating. Now, I will tell you, the Society Marshal actually cheated on this and looked stuff up on the internet while we were watching it. So Bjorn, what's the name of this week's game?
The name of the game for this evening is, Are You Laurel Curious?
Okay.
Almost got a spit take on that one, which would have made the whole thing worth it. So what we're going to do, and Bjorn kind of set me up perfect, is on the website for the Laurels, they kind of list what the principal area of their expertise is. See, you're looking at something.
I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I'm looking at the comments. That's all.
Okay. So I'm just going
to on my hands.
I'm going to rattle off some areas of principal expertise, and you tell me if there's actually someone in Caid that was recognized this or not. Okay. Super easy. So we'll start easy with calligraphy.
Yes, that one's easy. Master Thomas Bronwell comes to mind. There are others.
How about period encampments?
No.
There actually is one. At least
really?
Yeah, I don't know who it is. I mean, it's not my job.
Okay.
Let's see. How about stained glass?
Yes. Eowyn.
How about vexillology?
Yes. Master Rebecca.
Which is?
Which is silk flag painting.
I know. That one's awesome.
Yes.
Nephology.
No.
That is right. But Nico, you should aim for this one. It's the study of clouds. So
Oh,
there we go. How about astrology?
no.
You do actually have someone that's listed as their principal being astrology.
Not from here.
It's in the stars. I don't know. Hey, it's your website. How about cobbling?
If that's how you're defining it, yes.
Why?
Master
What-
Liam. But we
Oh,
called it cordwaining.
oh, okay. Oh, that's what that is. How about that? Snarking.
Which,
Snarking.
that's all of us. Duh.
That's your secondary. That's everyone's secondary.
That's everyone's stupid peer trick. Come on.
Oh,
That's
here we go.
actually, that's the third bar you have to pass.
Oh my gosh. Maybe I do have a chance. How about massage physical therapy?
Yes, Master Jamal, it's a secondary.
Well, and finally, how about apiology?
No.
That's right. It's the study of honeybees. So who knew?
Actually, Master Rodnavar, that could have been his secondary, though it was not.
Wow.
Because he basically got it for his research into honeybees as well as other weird medieval science stuff.
Not that it's weird in a bad way.
No, weird in a good way.
So thank you very much for coming on the show this evening. I know we've had the opportunity over the years to talk, but not really more about how things work on the inside. And I know there's a lot of speculation and peer fear, maybe even for newer people to come and speak to say, how do things work?
Yeah.
So I appreciate kind of a glimpse in behind the curtain to see how the business works and the fact that you guys aren't scary. You can actually have a conversation, right?
Yeah, and if I could just make that little disclaimer about all of us, we actually aren't scary, even though we may look it. We really aren't. And let me tell you, if you ask any of us about a topic we're interested in, we won't let you escape. We'll actually handcuff you to the pavilion pole, so you have to listen to us. We're all geeks. We are all just big old art geeks, and we would love to talk to you. So don't be afraid. Come talk to us. We're nice people.
Well, Ariana's a little scary.
Okay, well, yeah, but I've known her since I've been in the SCA, so I can agree. Yes, she's scary. Love you though.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a good rest of your evening. And thank you again for to look to see how things work, and thank you for your continued service.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have a great evening.
Cousin.
You too.
Well, every week I learn something new.
See, I thought Rodnavar's secondary was the study of bees, because one of the things he did was he made a period medieval style beehive.
Oh,
He
wow.
made the whole thing in his backyard, and he had the documentation for it and everything. And he kept the honey and he purified it, and he did. But it was huge project. It was fantastic. However, he has also since left Kingdom. I think he's now an Antir. So we did have someone who could have easily had that as a secondary, because it was that beehive was awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it, but I remember there was a lot of buzz when he was made a Laurel. Dude, you should have totally known that one was coming.
I honestly had forgotten. I had forgotten. My fault. I take full responsibility for that one.
So everyone, there's a drink for you. Who do we have coming next? What Laurel do we have next on the show?
We have from the Kingdom of the West. We have a dear friend of mine, a wonderful person, Baron. He's a Laurel and also a Pelican, and Barone Antonio Giordano, a excellent artisan and just a wonderful servant of the SCA, who will be joining us.
All righty, well, let's bring him on. And he'll be right about now. Hello.
Buonasera. Good evening.
Oh, I was going to say, did I have the wrong filter on?
Yeah.
So thank you for joining us from the West this evening. Where in the West are you, other than your house? But where in the West? What barony are you in?
We don't have a lot of baronies. We have a province.
Oh,
It's
That's
a province of Golden Rivers. It's in the Principality of Sinagua. It's the
Right.
Central Valley,
Oh, very nice.
Sacramento area.
And how long have you been active in SCA and in the West in particular?
I kind of trickled in the very late 90s and kind of picked up a local job about 1999, 2000. It was the type of thing where I think if you threw together all the events before 1999, it might have been 6 or 7. So I came very late to it. I'm 60 years old now. And so, the great flower of my youth has long since passed, and I had many, many injuries before I even took to fighting. And I have more injuries now thanks to fighting.
Not exactly a goal, by the way.
I know. It's kind of, rough sarcasm. Sorry about that.
Oh, we've come to the right place.
Yeah.
So you've been just in the Kingdom of the West is where you've played.
Yes, and this is a terrible thing to admit, I was society seneschal
Oh my God.
for almost 4.5 years. And so I've had a lot of experience with other kingdoms. I've made some great friends, especially in Atlantia, Atenveld, Antir. I've had to do some tough things, and yet I tried my best always to serve the society as best I could. When you're kingdom seneschal, you serve the kingdom. When you're principality seneschal, you serve the principality. And then you become society seneschal, and everybody thinks, oh, who is this terrible human being? But, you try to do the best you can to protect the society. And it's a daunting position, not something I would do again.
Yeah, anyone that will listen, I've told them I've done pretty much a cavalcade of positions, but I never want to be a seneschal. So kudos to you. Thank you for doing that job. Because that's a toughie. So, but all the accolades and high pay you get to do it makes it all worth it.
I actually don't. They give you a stipend, and because I'm a Pelican, I actually told them I didn't want the stipend.
Right.
It just went counterintuitive to me. So, and then when I stepped down, I went, oh, I could have gotten an S-Series Jaguar for that much. But, I'm better off without it.
Oh, priorities. So, were you always doing the Bardic arts when you first started, or did you kind of go into it, or how did that come about?
Have a very good friend, Mistress Catla, and she is probably the finest singing voice in the entire West Kingdom. She's also a better writer than I am, especially when it comes to lyrics. And when I went to a collegium, Bardic Collegium in the Isles, back when you used to have one there, we would drive down, and we had the greatest time. We'd stay in, the cheapest motel possible, probably maybe not the safest, and then we, drive in to the University of Santa Barbara, and I ended up getting caught, doing the player pass. And the second time I went, I just started telling stories. I'm a lawyer. I tell stories anyway. I've been a prosecuting attorney for over 33 years. And so storytelling became very easy. Also because of my liberal arts background. If I didn't have the law, I couldn't get employed. I studied and got my bachelor's degree in communications and in English literature. And I have a master's degree from SC in writing. So it was a natural that I'd pick up a pen and start writing again. And research is huge to me. Looking decent is one thing, but trying to become, as period as possible is, I think, very important. And that probably led me down the Laurel path.
Cool. So you're going to perform some pieces for us this evening. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Basically, I wanted to stay away from stories because stories sometimes become either terribly short or terribly long. And like they say, get on, get off, and leave them laughing or leave them crying. So I went with two poems. The first one is something I wrote last week, and it addresses not only the problems we have in our society today, meaning the United States of America. It also kind of touches on that as we look at what we're going through right now with this pandemic. And you had a tournament and had a changeover. We still have the same king and queen that we adopted roughly 12 months ago. So there's a real impact on people, and people are hurting, but they're also finding ways of connecting. So there's a poem, a sonnet, in the guise of Henry Howard, Earl of Surrey, and Thomas Wyatt. And what's important about them is if there was no Thomas Wyatt, no Earl of Surrey, there would have been no Shakespeare. That's my premise. Just like if there was no Petrarch, Dante, the troubadours and troubarites and trouvères, there would have been no Dante. And we have a modern equivalent of that. If there was no Chuck Berry, there would be no Elvis. If there was no Elvis, there would be no Beatles, and so on. Each successive generation kind of builds on itself. And, this beautiful poetry of Shakespeare really came about because Sir Thomas Wyatt spent a lot of time visiting Italy. And Henry Howard spent time in France, and the two of them became very close in terms of writing companions. So the first one is a sonnet in the guise of Sir Thomas Wyatt. The second is based on it's just a straight lyric poem based upon a Nordic tale. And to me, it's really important to remember that we take the SCA into our real lives. You see behind me, the swords in my family room, picture the kids over here, lots of swords. I don't leave the SCA, at the event. And honestly speaking, we were at a 12th night last year, and we had just lost a very dear person. She was like a sister to me. And so here we are at SCA Con. We're in this, very nice hotel. So there was no fire pit, no nothing. And what I've done is I've tried to translate that celebration of life we had for my dear Stefana, Viscountess Stefana. And instead of putting it in a hotel room, it's effectively put in a grand hall with a fire and hounds and wolves howling outside. So those are the two poems.
Well, great. Well, thank you for coming on the show this evening and sharing this with us. And the floor is yours.
Very good. I read this last week, and as everybody knows, each one of us is hurting because the SCA is a big part of our lives. And we're doing everything we can to maintain contact. But it's not all negative. Forward we trudge upon this road of life, memories of a dream that we have known vanquish the dread and grim troubles and strife. Isolated exile, but not alone. Plague and division, a curse on our land, joy of springtime's dreams are clouded and gray. This broken world we take in our hands. Through strength and honor, we will find our way. The heat of the forge gives strength to the steel. Hammer and anvil begets a blade true. The sword's edges are sharpened, ground on the wheel. This process makes the sword strong through and through. These dark days define us, courage and strength. These dark days will bind us in unity at length. And this is something I wrote. I'm currently part of Sinagua, the principality. I've been king, Bard of the West previously, the 11th, in fact. And this time I was lucky enough to prevail in a Bardic competition for my principality. And this is a poem I wrote for Viscountess Stefana, who is no longer with us. Nights grow long when winter is king. The hearth fire warms the hall. Stories, sagas, and songs we do sing. Outside, winds blow and wolves call. In my chair, my sword at my side, my hound curled up at my feet. Mead horns are kept well supplied, yet I spy an empty seat. Remember she who sat in that chair, a sister of joy and mirth. My younger sister catches my stare, unspoken memories of worth. My younger sister clings to her lord, my love takes hold of my hand. A memory we shared in gentle accord, our eyes wet like the surf's torn strand. The flames of the fire are spirits in life, the smoke are the souls of the dead. Despite our troubles, our labors and strife, their memory is not lost, nor it will be shed. When family gathers, in good times or bad, families share both no matter the times. We talk of the happy, we talk of the sad. We remember in songs and in rhymes. Nights grow long when winter is king. The hearth fire warms the hall. Stories, sagas, and songs we do sing. Outside, wind blows and wolves call.
Very nice. Thank you so much.
Quite welcome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm going to bring Bjorn in. He wants to have a little say. So
Thank you so much, my dear friend. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate the opportunity.
Solemnity is something that I think a lot of times people aren't as apt to talk about feelings, or they'll make light of them. The fact is, we've had so many feelings to deal with this past year. Just having a chance to listen to truly honed words that are razor keen, and still at the same time they're not really cutting words, they have an edge to them. I greatly appreciate it, and I thank you so much.
Thank you.
thank you. You have a good rest of your evening, and
Thank you.
hopefully we will be able to meet in person someday. And
We will undoubtedly.
very well. So, and if you ever make it back down to Santa Barbara, let me know. So.
We love Festival of the Rose, and
Oh.
we're going to be road tripping the next time you guys have one. We're going to find a way.
Fantastic. Well, then we shall cross our paths then.
Excellent.
Have a great evening, and we will talk to you again sometime soon.
Thank you both very much. Thank you.
Thank you, my
Good
friend.
night.
Speaking of Festival of the Rose, when I
Yeah.
was actually elevated at a Festival of the Rose, and Antonio and Katla came down from Sinagua to be there. And I first met them at one of they do travel a great deal. They came to an Isles event. We had a Bardic Collegium, and they came all the way down from the West. So they both did a lot of traveling and showed a lot of support for Caid bards, and they continue to the day. So I'm extremely happy that we got a chance to have them on this evening.
Right, and as he pointed out, their crown's been on there for about a year and still going. And I think that's like 3 reigns for them.
Yeah,
so
yeah, that's a long time.
they'll be the triple crown.
It's like I keep setting the ball for the spike. I don't know what I'm doing.
Appreciate it. So first, let's thank our guests, and Bjorn, thank you.
Yes.
Next week we will have another guest. And I'm sure we'll have another Bardic performance.
Wait, now, actually, that's one of the things I want to talk to you about. We have next week coming onto our program none other than His Excellency Bruce Draconarius of Mistholm, Baton Vert Herald Extraordinary himself. He'll be performing Bardic stuff. And with that beautiful sonorous voice of his, who knows? We could just have him read the phone book. Wouldn't matter, because it's Bruce. It's going to be awesome.
Wow, I didn't know he stayed up this late anymore.
Bruce, he said it, not me.
And we'll be sure to keep an eye out for our interview guest. Have a couple ideas, just waiting. People are a little slow responding still at the beginning of the year. But
Still hibernation time, isn't it?
it's true. So anyway, thank you, Bjorn.
Thank you, Laertes.
Thank you, people. Thank you, people. Thank you. I tell you, I cannot speak today. Thank you, everyone, for watching the show. And we will be back again next week when once again we will be live from
Caid.